Some of the qualities to make a good coach. I know you have all of these qualities. The biggest one is the ability to collaborate with your colleagues. Going in and working with that. The DeFores, who are very big in the PLCs, define collaboration, and I think it's a great way. A systematic process in which we work together interdependently to analyze and impact professional practice in order to improve our individual and collective results. Kind of puts a lot of weight on your shoulder, though. But I think the biggest words there, interdependently. We need the teachers as much as the teachers need us, because the teachers are the ones that are there on a day-to-day basis, and that is different, and it is something that takes a little practice on doing.
And I think it takes trust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of being respected too. I think it takes a while to establish that level of trust with that partner that you're coaching, because when that trust is there, I think you are able to be more open and honest and reflective, and they respect your point of view more. So I think trust is a key component of this whole process as well. And so I think the first step is establishing that trusting relationship with that person. And that's by being knowledgeable, being there, being a good resource, dependable, all those kinds of things, so that they develop that trust with you. And then, like I said, then I think you're able to say things more openly and freely.
I think for me, the hard, just from it was my first year, so I was learning. Still have tons to learn. But just say you're working with a teacher that has been teaching for, like, say, 17 years in the same position, and now you're asked to go in and coach. And just kind of the pushback that you get, and just learning how to work through that. But
And that's a really good point, that you may be working with a teacher who has many years of experience over you. And that's where you really have to think, in that colleague-to-colleague role. I've got the same licensure you do, or I've got a license too. I'm not here to judge you, be administrative to you. We're here to work together. And you brought up a point that you may be told to go in and coach. With your role, are you sensing, and I know you're kind of all still feeling out your role, that you're going to be told who you need to work with, or are the teachers going to come to you and say, can you help me with this?
My sense is, I'm new to this, but my sense is they're encouraging us to reach out to all of them that we're assigned to and let them know that we are there to support them in any way that we can, and to help them in any way that we can, and that we are not there from a judgmental standpoint, and they're going to be giving us activities to help us learn how to approach that, so that we can build those relationships first and then move from there. And having the nice thing about this, I think the thing that helps me the most is having sat in a building for 15 years and then made a decision to leave there and go to a different job, because I was EBD for about 15 years and then went out back to LD in a different building, and that really helped me to think about, building those collaborative relationships, because it's like, wait a minute, they're looking at me strangely. They don't know me. So knowing how important that is, it was a reminder, and the steps that you go through to build that trust in that relationship, because nothing's going to happen without it.
Right.
Nothing.
And each building has its own culture.
Yes.
At least in the buildings I work in.
Yes.
Maybe the same district, but each building has its own culture. So knowing the culture of those different buildings is huge too. And with the research that Jim has done as he's worked on this coaching, is typically when a coach comes in and goes to the teachers, like you were saying, that I'm available and this is what I can do. It's typically the best teacher that comes to you first, because they're the ones that are always looking to improve. And actually that's a good thing, because people see, she's in there working with Mrs. Smith and she was Teacher of the Year last year. I guess it isn't a negative thing to have the coach come into me. So you may, if you aren't getting a lot of business, you may even go to some of those really high quality teachers and say, you do a great job. I want to see what you're doing. Will you allow me to work with you for a little while so that I can practice some things and see some things and build this coaching experience for the rest of the teachers? So that might be a way of doing it. In the book, he does have a chapter on, what do you do? How do you let people know that this coaching is available and so on. So there are some ways that he gives you some tips on, because sometimes people don't even know you're there. It is a change, very much a cultural change. And for those teachers who have had a few gray hairs like me, because I'm over 50 also, that it is a shift in how you were trained. Teaching really, when we were first trained, is a very isolated profession. You get your students in your room, you close the door, you do your magic fairy dust, and at 3 o'clock you open the door again and let them out. And you don't interact with your colleagues. Whereas this coaching model really starts to build that interaction and that collegial atmosphere that, oh, she has something that I can learn from. The district I taught in for many years, we had days where we could, I think it was 2 or 3 days in our contract, we could go observe teachers in our district or in other districts, and it was a paid, they paid for the sub and everything. I don't think 1/10 of the teachers used those days, because they were the expert. They couldn't leave their kids with anyone else because nobody else could do their kids the way they did. And that is such a poor thing, because it's such a great way to learn, by just watching someone else. Or having someone come in and watch someone else interact with the children you're working with on a day-to-day basis. So to me it's exciting, and I'm really thrilled that there are some districts who are starting to do some of these things. Let's run backwards. Michael Fullan is another author that I truly have bought into. I was telling Jackie and Terry that one of my first, let's see, when was this written? '04. So one of my first years that I was working in HVED, all the principals met on a monthly basis with our director, and they went through this book as part of their monthly meetings. What's nice about this version of it, it has a discussion guide at the end of every chapter. So it's built as a book study book, and it really helped the principals to kind of think about, at that point a lot of things were happening, how do I manage this change process? How do I work to be an effective leader with all this going on around me, where I'm having to learn right along with my teachers? So it is a really good book to look through and read. I wish I was as well read as some of these other authors, because they're quoting all these people and say, oh my gosh, I need to read that too. But what he said, and a lot of it comes from a business perspective, but he also always ties it into the schools as well, because he wants to make money, so he's tapping into both. But his 6 secrets of change, I think, are really interesting. Love your employees. That's his number one thing that you're supposed to do, and I'll go through each of these. I think I'll go through. You need to connect peers with a purpose. That is really a powerful statement. Capacity building prevails. Learning is the work. And transparency rules and systems learn. Very quickly summarizing what each of those are. So to love your employees, and that's his term, but for us it's love our colleagues. You need to enable everyone to learn continuously. You need to focus on all in the building. Our paraprofessionals, our teachers, our administrators, our secretaries, everybody needs to be learning and into the whole system's change. If the job is satisfying, then the results will be a commitment to the organization. Wow. How many teachers left their building in June and said, I had an awesome year? I hear a lot of grumbling. There's a lot happening and not feeling supported. So we need to make sure that the people that we're working with, our teachers, our psychs, everybody really has that satisfaction in their job. Obviously you can't do that alone, but by giving that honest, positive feedback, those little attaboys, attagirls along the way, hopefully the satisfaction in the job will increase a little bit. And once that satisfaction is there, they're going to be committed to making things better all around. Connect peers with a purpose. Don't just have a meeting because you're supposed to have a meeting at the end of the month. Make sure that you're connecting people for a reason. That you're getting the person in the math wing that does really a good job at accommodating kids with EBD to talk to the person in the science wing who has really problems managing behaviors. How can we connect those two people who probably never see each other and work on those types of things? So not just grouping just because that's the way it goes. You want to make sure you're doing that. You're consolidating, you're connecting those things. Capacity building, making sure that you are working on competencies, you're getting resources, and you're also working on the motivation. You also want to make sure that it's safe, and I don't remember who was talking about, you really do have to make sure it's safe to take a risk and to change. What if it doesn't work? That's okay. If it doesn't work, we've learned something. We've learned that this didn't work with this student, we'll try something else. It's not a failure, it just wasn't a match. So we want to make sure we're talking about it as it just wasn't the right fit. It's not a failure if it didn't work. We're looking at, if you aren't building with capacity, you're looking only at short term and not long term. You may have been able to do something that helped this kid get through third grade because you spoon-fed him everything and you passed him on, but did that really help him long-term learning? And unfortunately, a lot of SPED is that, well, I'm going to help them with their homework. You guys who know me know that that's just a pet peeve of mine, that special ed has become homework police, and that's all we do. We don't teach the strategies and the skills to be able to do that independently long term. We got them through that grade in that class because they got a B because we helped them with their homework, but they didn't learn. So I'll get off my soapbox because I could go on that for the rest of the day. So giving them and making sure that it's okay to do that. Abe Lincoln was a pretty smart guy. We can succeed only in concert. It is not, can any of us imagine better, but can we all do better? Way back in Lincoln's time, he was thinking this. This is what we're still working on in this day. Can we all do better? We see that things can be better, but are we really trying to do it better? Learning is work, so professional development workshops that are just the shot in the dark, the spray and pray type workshops, they do nothing. We want to make sure that the workshops and the professional developments that we're doing really support what changes need to happen. The objective is not to identify whom to blame for a problem, it is to find out where the system failed. That's another powerful statement. We're not blaming a single person. It's a system thing. If students aren't being successful, there's something in the system that didn't work. Maybe the system allowed a teacher to not do the best teaching. Maybe the system allowed a student just to be dragged along. So we're always thinking at the systems level. How can the system support something? How can you as a coach work on improving the system? Transparency, this is where schools have data days. You're sharing your graphs at grade level meetings so you can see where students are doing. You're looking at your benchmark data so you can see how is grade 3 doing? How is 8th grade doing in reading? How is 8th grade doing in writing? So you're looking at data and it's there, it's out there that everybody can see it. It's not to blame, but it's again to look at the system. If you've got a grade level where 3 grades are doing great and 1's not, what happened in the system? Is it a school that there's teachers can be chosen, and so all the high quality parents and all the top notch parents and the knowledgeable parents request these 3 teachers, and then that teacher who's probably the weaker of the 4 gets all the lower kids? That's a system problem because they're allowing that to perpetuate. And so that poor teacher who's not as strong ends up with the toughest kids. That's a system issue.
Or the strong teacher gets all the behavioral challenging students because they're good at that.
Yep.
Student.
So you're looking at that. And then, systems learn. So you need to continuously, as you're here, you need to continuously learn, continuously move forward, and so on. It also depends on schools being confident in the face of complexity. Fullen is another one that does really good quotes. And open to new ideas. So is your district ready to move with these new ideas? Are they open to changing practices that have been there since 94-142 was authorized? Some are and some aren't. Confidence is, but not certitude in the face of complexity. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because it's going to feel really strange when you really, truly implement a system of SRBI. It doesn't feel good those first couple of years. It's awkward and clunky. And there's, right? It's a total change of mindset and approach. Classroom teachers are so used to filling out a referral form, a test is being administered, and the kid is plunked in special ed. That's a pattern that needs to break. We're telling kids that they're broken before we as the teachers try to fix ourselves. So it's going to feel really uncomfortable, and you're going to have some teachers who resist. That's where your coaching comes into play as to why are we doing these changes. If I were to ask you that question now, and we'll try to remember to ask you it at the end of day 4, why are we changing the way we identify students with learning disabilities? If someone asked you that now, how would you answer that?
Because we're so quick to judge.
Okay, we're so quick to judge, so we're...
Because they're not learning one style doesn't mean they're disabled.
Okay, so we're identifying kids as disabled who truly aren't disabled. Am I paraphrasing you? Okay, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Okay, so which is true. We've identified, put a label on kids that maybe we could have done something differently. We're quick to add that.
Or am I hearing also that might be a mismatch of teaching style versus learning style?
Right. There's
And the judgment there.
You
don't fit my mold, so the
Right.
problem must be you.
Right. And I know from my past experience when I placed my students in with a regular ed teacher, I look to a teacher who will best fit that student, where regular ed teachers always don't have that ability.
Okay, so we need to give the gen ed teachers some skills. When they were trained, especially those who have been trained along, they weren't trained on how to work with diverse learning that we have now. So how else would you answer? Any additions, elaborations on that, or other ways?
I think kids go beyond just a set of numbers, because when I think of the old system, it's like, okay, here's the IQ score, here's the achievement score. Oh, good, we have a difference, we can help them. Or, oh, there's no difference. Here, you're going to get plugged back into the system, and we're not going to do anything to help you out when obviously you're still struggling.
Okay, so we're getting away from the magic number, whether you're in or out, and looking more at the whole child.
I think too we focus more on the next best educational step and really drilling down and trying to problem solve to find a strategy that's going to meet the student's need rather than a set intervention.
Look at the term. You've been to some of these trainings, haven't you? Good job. But it is. We are really looking at, to paraphrase so it gets on there, the next right instructional step. We really want to drill down and see where the breakdown happened. It's more than the kid can't read, it's the why can't the student read, and what can we do to fix that, or at least minimize that impact. So we'll see if you elaborate any more on that answer as we go through, or you did very well.